Quad 6.6. Are you seeing what's happening here? So see that funny little, so that's a blue bottom there. That's like an FPVwoo color blue bottom with a FLYcycle bell on it. And over here, we got that black kind of gunmetal-y bottom with that blue, that FPVwoo bell. Yeah, so I actually went ahead and I pulled off on both of the quads, pulled off the bells on both of the right side motors, and then I switched them. So I took the FLYcycle bells and threw them on the FPVwoo stators, and then I took the FPVwoo bells and threw them on the FLYcycle stators. And the reason I did that was because to try and sort of differentiate a little bit about, so what's the difference in the way these motors fly. So in general, we know on the thrust stand that the FPVwoo motors will generate a little bit more thrust at any given amps, and their high-end thrust is a little higher than the FLYcycle. But when I fly them, I personally like the way the FLYcycles fly better because I just get better responsiveness, and that's the thing that I'm a little bit more interested in, as long as I'm not giving up too much on the other factors. But so what this allowed me to do was try and isolate the bell from the stator a little bit, and then also fly it on two different setups. So on this one I've got, this was, let me see which one this is. This one is on 24 kilohertz, and then this one's on 48 kilohertz. And then I could go ahead and fly and try both of these combinations at the same time. And so mainly what I was looking for was obviously on the roll axis, and that's where I feel differences in motor responsiveness the most, because I feel like I'm doing this more than I'm doing, the pitch axis. So I do a lot more flying on the roll than I do on the pitch. Anyways, to me, that's the way I feel. The pitch tends to be more smoother movements. But anyways, so what I was able to do is kind of get the feel for both of the bells and the different stators, or the bells on the different bells, flying at the same time, which is kind of interesting. Now, I'm not going to make like real definitive statements about it because neither of these quads flew entirely happy. So basically both of these flew better when I had the normal bells on there than in this state, and they just did some funny stuff. But anyways, what I did feel though is, and I tried to kind of be a little bit blind about it, so I plugged the quad in, didn't really pay attention to which motor was on each side, tried to fly it, and then I tried to do a bunch of little split S and quick, roll, little step motion and stuff, and little push slalom. And the performance carried with the bell in terms of, on this quad here, when I would go ahead and we'll do it from the FPV perspective, when I would roll this quad to the left versus the right, on this one I got a better response in terms of quicker roll to the left than I did to the right. And on this quad here, where the bells are the opposite, I got a better roll going to the right than I did the left. And it was probably a little bit more noticeable on this quad. And what was kind of interesting is I was expecting that maybe these would be close enough. So when you kind of like just turn them in your hand, this feels pretty good. It feels like, it doesn't really feel like it's binding or anything, doing anything weird. But for whatever reason, the quads just didn't fly super great. I noticed higher core temperatures, and so that's why I don't want to say anything definitive from this. But in general, what I found when I did this is that these stayed consistent in the sense that overall, this quad, even going to the rolling on the FPVwoo dominant side, this roll with these with this bell was on par with the roll on this quad going dominant on the FLYcycle side. So I think there's a little bit of combination of both the motor bell and also the stator. Maybe in both cases there's something that's happening a little bit different. And then what was really noticeable is that there was a really, really dramatic difference between the roll going on this quad on the FPVwoo motor side compared to this quad. Like, it accentuated it when you put these bells over here. And I think that's kind of part of the interaction where you know, when you're rolling, you're doing two things, right? You are both accelerating this motor and also kind of braking this motor. And so when you flip it over, these motors seem like they were able to dominate to some degree over the FPVcycle motors. I'm not 100% sure if that's completely true, but that's what it felt like. Anyways, it was interesting. So I was able to compare this to both on, so two different boards, you know, 24 kV versus 48 kV, or sorry, not kV, but 24 kilohertz versus 48 kilohertz. And I was also able to, you know, see them both with the different stators. The one thing I can't fully rule out is maybe this board is just a little bit of a dog compared to this board. Although I don't think that's the case, because to me, every time I've flown FPVcycle motors, they felt actually really consistent across Crazy Bee F3 board, across a Beta FPV F4 board, and now on this B-Brain brushless board. Versus, so maybe this is like the ultimate ringer board. Somehow Newbie Drone picked out of their stock like the ultimate board to send to me, and maybe I got a ringer here and that's why I feel it. But anyways, I just thought that was different. So to me, this reinforces to me that I'm just not making stuff up. I can, on the same quad, while flying with the same battery, same board, everything, same tune, I can feel a difference between rolling left and right, just because I'm switching out the bell for the FPVcycle bell versus the FLYwoo bell. And I do think that there may be some in the stator as well. But anyways, that's my little kind of mad scientist sort of experiment. Now I got to see if I can pull these back apart and not lose too many C-clips and get them back together and get these quads flying like they normally do. Till next time, cheers.